Now, your host, Ken Brew, on News Radio 700 WLW.
11:08, welcome back. No lie, we are a stressed-out society. If it's not the pandemic, it's Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. It's what's going on financially in this country. It is a time unlike any other. Stress is at an all-time high. And a new study reveals that during the pandemic and leading into where we are right now, we are just not eating well. We are kind of binge eating crap to try and make ourselves feel better. Maybe that quick high. Maybe something that we eat because it's quick and we can get on to something else to worry about. This new study found that 52% of us, it's more than half, at least where I went to school, 52% of us have been consuming more unhealthy snacks and desserts since the start of the pandemic. And now things like chronic heart disease, high blood pressure, obesity are back in the forefront for a lot of people that just didn't want to go to the doctor even before the pandemic. What's going on here? And all of this stuff that we're eating now, binge eating to get us through a day, what are we doing to ourselves? Major question. There's got to be some answers. And I think we found the guy with the answers. We've had Jonathan Bailor on before. He's the founder and CEO of one of the 500. Let me get this, is CEO of the Inc. 500 fastest growing metabolic healing and diabetes treatment companies. It's called SANESolution. He's also got a best-selling book on the New York Times list. We'll get into that as well. But Jonathan, how are you on this glorious Thursday?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you joining me. It's early where you are. You're out on the West Coast, and so we appreciate you getting up and joining us. Let's talk a little bit about this. What is it about us as a society that psychologically, when things get tough, we eat stuff that just isn't good for us? Ever figure that one out?
You hit the nail on the head in terms of we need to zoom out a bit here in terms of like what's happening. So this is not, it's actually new that people would turn to something to soothe them in times of stress. We've seen that with the opioid epidemic. We see this with social media. We see this with alcohol. It's just that now we're seeing an increased prevalence of people doing this with food. And this is, of course, something that we need to take steps to remedy. And I can assure you that just telling people to try harder or shame, which are the traditional approaches, don't help. In fact, we now have data to suggest they make the problem worse.
So when you eat, and I'm not going to cap on fast food. I'm not going to cap on McDonald's or Burger King or Taco Bell or any of that. I mean, that's a choice somebody can make. But when you opt for that kind of food at the expense of something that's good for you, that may involve, colorful vegetables or organically grown food, something that doesn't have a label on it, what are you doing to yourself? I mean, if you do it once, is it bad? Is it like if you smoke one cigarette, is that as bad as, smoking a pack a day? What are you doing to yourself if you eat this food?
The body is a brilliant and resilient system. So just like if you were to smoke one cigarette every 10 years, chances are that wouldn't have a negative long-term impact on your health. Similarly, if we indulge every once in a while, it is very unlikely that that will have a significant negative impact on our health. And if you want evidence of that, we can certainly just look back to previous generations preceding the obesity and diabetes epidemics. So essentially any generation that lived prior to the 1980s, they drank soda. They may have had cake. Pies existed. They just didn't have the chronic consumption of it that we have today. So what we need to look at is our daily habits. What are we doing each and every day, day in and day out, and how can we make small changes that move us in the direction of better? Because the reality is this is an issue. It does take effort. So trying to go from eating refined processed starches 3 times a day to only eating kale and seltzer water is probably not the jump most people are going to make.
But it is funny how the mind sometimes controls the body. Here's another, the American Psychological Association. They did this Stress in America poll. 63% of the people they talked to said their lives have been changed forever by COVID-19. And it's not just what they eat, it's how they conduct their lives. Half say they have been less active during the pandemic start. This isn't even factoring in what's going on halfway around the world with Russia and Ukraine that may or may not fester into something bigger than what it is right now. It's really how you conduct yourself on a day-to-day basis is what you're talking about, particularly with food, but with everything else as well. It's a mindset, but it's so difficult to get out of that mindset if every other day you're pulling up to the drive-through window and getting a bag of burgers, isn't it?
It is. And the good news is that if we pull together as a society, we can do miraculous things. I mean, let's look at what we did with exactly the COVID pandemic. I mean, I think we of course, there were some roadblocks and some stumbling blocks, and we're not out of it. But certain things, such as the development of vaccines, happened in record-breaking time. And we did pull together in many ways as a world to address this issue. But I even want to zoom out further. Like, let's look at smoking, for instance. While soda and sugar and junk food are pervasive, until there is a soda dispenser installed in every car, things are not as bad as they were for smoking. Because remember, we used to have lighters in cars. Forget about them burning children. So we actually facilitated smoking by default as a society. We don't do that anymore. So there are steps that we as a society can and must take to make it easier to make health boosting choices rather than easier to make health destroying choices.
God bless cell phones for replacing cigarette lighters inside cars. Now it's a cell phone that takes up that space. There you go. There's technology stepping in and helping us health-wise, right?
It's ironic and funny that you should say cell phones, because I mean, there are opportunities. We've seen a huge increase in meal delivery services, for example. This is a booming industry that never really existed before. It was a fringe industry, but individuals getting prepared or semi-prepared meals and foods delivered to them, especially in the pandemic, this idea of ride sharing and delivery services. We as a society and as individuals can do things to make making healthier choices both more enjoyable and more convenient. And that, we can moralize all day, but until we tactically and economically make this the easier and enjoyable choice, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad. People don't really come to that that point in their life until they get sick, until you have an event with your heart or you have something that's going on metabolically that's wrong with you. I mean, it really takes that kind of life-changing event to get you to the altar of good eating. I mean, and again, that's human nature, but unfortunately, most of us don't get there unless we absolutely have to get there. Have you found that out too?
Absolutely. And we have been in a crisis. I mean, we've been in a pandemic unlike the world has ever seen for the past 2 years. So, I mean, my job is about helping people to live their best lives long term. But that said, you can't live your best life long term unless you can get through today. And when we're in a crisis mode, when we feel like we're in a crisis mode, every day is, can I get through today? Can I get through? Can I make it through one more day? So the sooner we can get ourselves out of that idea of crisis mode, how am I just going to make it through one other day and I can think of designing my life more holistically, that's when this really becomes a possibility. I hope we're nearing that point because, personal responsibility, very important, and COVID was a big deal. Yeah. So, hopefully we can get out of that.
Yeah. Jonathan's company is SANESolution. You can find it at SANESolution.com. And his book, the New York Times bestseller, is The Calorie Myth: How to Eat More, Exercise Less, Lose Weight, and Live Better. Okay, so there are, I would think, knowing what our ratings are, there are a lot of people that are driving out to lunch right now, about to go to that drive-through window or to go into some shop and pick up something that's fresh off the grill. If we could pull somebody back right now that's listening, Jonathan, what would we tell them about an alternative they may want to consider for lunch today?
I would strongly recommend that you think in terms of progress rather than perfection. So what I mean by that is you are not bad for going to McDonald's. There are myriad delicious choices at McDonald's that you can choose from. And I'm not just talking about their salads. For example, if you were to choose to get a Big Mac, that is not the number one recommendation I would make. But if you ate it with literally one bun rather than two buns, you would be making a wiser choice.
Yeah.
If you ate half the French fries rather than all the French fries, you would be making a more health-sustaining choice. So the idea is, like, what are these small, little, gradual tweaks you can make? You don't need a PhD in nutrition. We all know soda's bad for us.
Right.
That doesn't mean you need to stop soda tomorrow. But, like, could you leave a little bit in the cup next time you go? And then next week, leave a little bit more in the cup next time you go, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The 3 words you need to lose in your vocabulary are supersize me, right? If you can get those words out of your vocabulary, you're doing well. And by the way, I think you're onto something here with soda machines in cars. I think that'd be revolutionary. Unfortunately, we can't get the cars built, but if we could, soda machines in cars would be a great idea. You just don't put soda in them. Maybe you put, like, I don't know, cranberry juice, something like that. That'd be fantastic.
Well, yes, I think there are definitely steps that we can take, and we have taken. It's just that they're not widely available to make cost-effective and healthy eating available for everybody.
Where can we find your book? Because I like that. How to Eat More and Exercise Less, Lose Weight, Live Better. Is that on SANESolution.com, or is that on Amazon, or where can we find that?
Yeah, anywhere you buy books, you can find the Calorie Myth. And if you have time and you are inside, we did actually just recently release a film in collaboration with some top doctors at Harvard Medical School that actually do outline a way to do enjoyable, healthy, practical eating for the whole family. That movie is called Better, and you can watch that at bettermovie.com.
And by the way, it's breakfast out there where you're living. What are you eating right now for breakfast? It's not a bowl of Lucky Charms. Don't tell me that.
It's not. Usually my breakfast, I have 2 little girls. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, so I have a huge amount of time for breakfast. So my breakfast is usually a couple hard-boiled eggs and a piece of no nitrate added ham. That's my breakfast.
Wow. There's a guy that walks the walk, not just talks the talk. Jonathan, you stay well. I don't have to tell you that. You are going to stay well the way you're eating, but we need to hear your voice. We'll do it again. Thank you.
Thank you.